March 1944.
76 Allied prisoners disappear from the one camp the Nazis built specifically so that couldn't happen. 3 tunnels. A full year of planning. Hundreds of men coordinating in secret, right under the noses of their captors. The Germans had called it impossible. They'd staked their reputation on it. But here's the thing, and this is the part that almost never makes it into the documentaries. The Germans knew. Not after the tunnel was found. Not after the alarm went up. Before any of that. They knew, and they said nothing. So the question, the one that honest historians have danced around for decades, is why? Because once you start digging into what actually happened that night, stick with me. Because I promise you, the answer is not what you've been told. Most people come to this story through the 1963 film. And honestly, it's a great film. McQueen on a motorcycle, heroic prisoners, bumbling Nazi guards who can't seem to catch a break. But that's exactly the problem with great films. They simplify. They cut the uncomfortable parts. Because the real story of Stalag Luft 3, it involves a German Luftwaffe officer who walked that compound every single day and almost certainly knew what was happening beneath his feet. It involves a prisoner-run intelligence operation so sophisticated it'd make some government agencies look sloppy. And here's where it gets genuinely unsettling. It may involve a deliberate decision by the Nazi command to let the whole thing play out. Now look, most people hear that and immediately assume German incompetence. I get it. That's the easy explanation. But incompetence doesn't explain the documents. It doesn't explain how fast those men were caught afterward. And it sure doesn't explain the order that came down from Hitler's own table within 24 hours. There's something darker buried in this story. Let's find it. Before anything else, you need to understand where these men actually were, because it matters more than most people realize. Stalag Luft 3 wasn't a regular camp. It was purpose-built to be inescapable. That wasn't just a boast, it was an engineering project. The Nazis chose the location deliberately. The soil underneath, bright orange sand, fine, loose, unmistakable. If you dug a tunnel and brought that dirt to the surface, it would stand out against the gray compound ground like a flare going off. They'd wired seismic microphones into the ground, sensors that could theoretically pick up digging vibrations from 100 feet away. The barracks were built on stilts, specifically so guards could look underneath at any time. Watchtowers sat every 150 feet around the perimeter. Armed. Lit up all night. And then there was the warning wire, a low strand running inside the outer fence. Step past it, the guards didn't ask questions. The Luftwaffe was genuinely proud of this place. Oberst Friedrich Wilhelm von Lindeiner, the camp's commanding officer, had personally assured his superiors that no prisoner would ever escape from Stalag Luft 3. He staked his career on that promise. But here's the thing about building the perfect cage. You have to put someone inside it. And the men inside this one weren't your average prisoners. These were pilots, engineers, chemists, linguists, forgers. Men who had been trained, basically, to solve problems other people considered unsolvable. Roger Bushell. South African by birth, Cambridge by education. Arguably the most dangerous man the Nazis ever made the mistake of locking up. He'd already escaped twice before reaching Stalag Luft 3, both times recaptured, both times transferred somewhere supposedly tougher. When Bushell arrived at the camp, he didn't spend his first week adjusting. He spent it planning. This wasn't sneak 3 guys through a gap in the fence. This was industrialized escape. He wanted 200 prisoners out, simultaneously. The largest coordinated breakout in the history of warfare. 3 tunnels, Tom, Dick, and Harry, each one stretching over 300 feet, each needing wooden supports to stop the ceiling from caving in, each requiring its own ventilation system, its own underground rail track to move dirt, its own concealed entrance hidden somewhere inside the barracks. And to run all of that, he organized over 600 men into what can only be described as a shadow military operation. Forgers producing fake civilian papers, tailors secretly converting uniforms into civilian clothes, scouts, they called them stooges, tracking every guard's pattern, every rotation, every habit. Their warning system could alert the entire underground network in under 30 seconds. 600 men. Nazi prison camp. Running a covert operation for over a year without a single person breaking. Think about that for a moment. But, and this is the part that changes everything, someone on the other side of those fences knew something was happening. Hermann Glemnitz, head of camp security. His whole job, his only job, was to find escape attempts before they became escapes. And by all accounts, including those of the prisoners themselves, he was genuinely good at it. He had informants. He ran surprise searches. He knew which prisoners were likely causing trouble, and he had a feel for when something was off. The man could apparently hear a loose floorboard at 20 paces. In August 1943, Glemnitz's team found Tunnel Tom. Discovered it, destroyed it, probably congratulated themselves. Bushell didn't even pause. He moved everything, every resource, every man, over to Tunnel Harry. But here's where the story gets genuinely strange. After the war, in interviews, Glemnitz admitted he'd had strong suspicions that the digging hadn't stopped. He knew there were almost certainly more tunnels. He said as much. So why didn't he find them? Some historians land on the obvious answer. He was outsmarted. That's possible. Honestly, it might even be true, partially. But Glemnitz wasn't a fool. And the evidence, when you look at the full picture, suggests he wasn't quite as blind as the official record implies. Which raises a question that points somewhere much higher up. Somewhere with far more uncomfortable implications. By early 1944, Germany was in trouble. Real trouble. The Eastern Front was falling apart. Allied bombers were hitting German cities on a near-nightly basis. Inside the country, morale was quietly cracking in ways that made the SS very, very nervous. So, think about it from their perspective for a second. What does a regime in that position actually need? A win. A story. Something to point to and say, we're still in control. We're still the ones running this. And some historians, including British intelligence analysts who went through German wartime documents after the war, have put forward a theory that sounds almost too cold-blooded to believe. That elements within the German Luftwaffe may have deliberately allowed the escape to proceed. Not because they were soft, not because they were careless, because they were running a counter-operation. Here's the logic. If 200 Allied officers suddenly flood the German countryside, they'd have to reach out to the underground networks that had been helping Allied escapees filter through to neutral countries. Networks that the Gestapo had been trying to crack for years. One mass escape could expose the whole thing, burn an entire resistance infrastructure in a matter of days. The breakout happened the night of March 24, 1944. Within 72 hours. 72 hours. 73 of the 76 men who'd made it out were already back in custody. That is not the recapture rate of a country that was caught off guard. That is a country that was ready. But what came next, nobody, I think, was fully prepared for. Not even the people who gave the order. Hitler's reaction when he heard about the escape wasn't embarrassment. It was rage. On March 25, 1944, less than 24 hours after the escape was discovered, he called Himmler, Göring, and Keitel into a room. What was said in that meeting is still debated. What came out of it is not. An order was issued. History knows it as the Sagan Order. The recaptured officers were not to be returned to the camp. Most were to be handed directly to the Gestapo. And then, in open, deliberate violation of the Geneva Convention, 50 of them were shot. Not in combat. No tribunal. No charges. Just shot. 50 men who had done exactly what every soldier is supposed to do when captured: try to get home. Roger Bushell, Gordon Brettel, Arnocht Valenta, Henry Picard, 46 others. Bushell, the man who built the machine, who coordinated 600 people in secret for over a year, who refused to stop no matter how many times he was caught, was shot in a forest outside Saarbrücken. He was 33 years old. Whatever the Germans thought they were accomplishing, the trap, the counter-operation, the show of control, it backfired catastrophically. The murders of 50 Allied officers became one of the most widely reported atrocities of the entire war. Churchill named them in Parliament. The killers were documented. And after the war, British military investigators hunted down the men responsible with a persistence that lasted years. 21 of the officers involved in the executions were themselves executed for war crimes. 17 more went to prison. The Germans had tried to use an escape as a weapon. What they actually built was a reckoning. There's a memorial there now. In the forest in Poland, near where Tunnel Harry once opened into the cold night air, near where 76 men crawled out one by one and ran, there are 50 stone markers. One for each man who didn't come back. We've always told this as a story of triumph, and it is. The ingenuity, the discipline, the sheer stubbornness of those men, all of it is real, and all of it deserves to be remembered. But it's also a story about something else. About what institutions do when they feel the ground shifting under them. They watch. They calculate. They let you believe you're the one in control. And then they remind you who holds the power. The Germans may have known about Tunnel Harry for weeks before that March night. The question worth sitting with, the one I keep coming back to, is how long they'd been planning their response before a single man hit the surface. Some tunnels don't close when you fill them in. Some of them stay open.